In the distant corners of the galaxy, where stars shone like scattered diamonds, the chase had become more than just a pursuit. It was a war of wits, a battle between two vastly different worlds. The Lurian Empire, a dominant force that stretched across countless systems, had become obsessed with capturing one particular ship, a small, seemingly insignificant human freighter named Endeavor. To the Lurian fleet, it was a puzzle that needed to be solved, a target that had slipped through their fingers far too many times. The Endeavor, with its unassuming exterior and lack of any significant military armament, had proven to be an elusive shadow in the galaxy, always a step ahead, always vanishing before they could strike. For years, the Lurian Empire had thrown everything at it: countless warships, state-of-the-art technology, and even the most skilled commanders, but every attempt to corner the ship had ended in failure, frustration mounting with each encounter. The humans aboard the Endeavor weren't warriors. They weren't seasoned soldiers trained for space combat. They were a mismatched group of ordinary men and women who had been thrust together under extraordinary circumstances. Their captain, Alina Briggs, was a woman whose mind was as sharp as the edge of a blade. Her reputation had spread far and wide, not because of any grand military accomplishments, but because of her uncanny ability to think on her feet, to adapt and outsmart even the most formidable opponents. Under her leadership, the Endeavor had become more than just a ship. It had become a symbol of human ingenuity, resourcefulness, and defiance. What they lacked in firepower, they more than made up for in strategy. Every time the Lurian fleet thought they had cornered the ship, Briggs would pull off a daring escape, leading them on a new trail of confusion and misdirection. The Endeavor would disappear into the vastness of space, leaving behind only the faintest traces of its presence, while the Lurian ships scrambled, chasing ghosts. As the years dragged on, the Lurian fleet began to see the Endeavor as more than just a ship. To capture it had become an obsession. The aliens, for all their technological superiority, couldn't comprehend the constant escapes. They were used to crushing their enemies with overwhelming force, not playing cat and mouse with a single nimble human vessel. Slowly, this obsession began to cloud their judgment. Where once they had seen the humans as simple prey, now they began to respect them, though they were too proud to admit it. The Endeavor had shown them that humans weren't just easy targets. They weren't predictable. They weren't weak. In fact, the more the Lurian fleet chased them, the more they began to realize that they had underestimated the human capacity for survival, for cleverness, and for sheer determination. But the Endeavor wasn't just running from the Lurian fleet, it was leading them somewhere. Captain Briggs knew that every maneuver, every misdirection had a purpose. She was drawing the Lurian Empire into a trap. As they chased her from one system to the next, they were unknowingly playing right into her hands. The Endeavor's crew had been working in secret for years, gathering intelligence, studying Lurian tactics, and preparing a strategy that would, at the right moment, turn the tables. The Endeavor wasn't just a ship anymore. It was the center of a brilliant, dangerous game, and every move had been calculated with precision. Yet, the crew wasn't without their doubts. There were those aboard the ship who questioned the captain's plan. Lieutenant Voss, one of the more experienced officers, had spent years serving in the military before joining the Endeavor. He had seen firsthand the power of the Lurian Empire. He knew that their warships were far superior to anything the humans had. The Endeavor's small crew and outdated technology were no match for the Lurian fleet's overwhelming firepower. The further they led the Lurian ships into deep space, the more dangerous the situation became. What if the trap failed? What if they were wrong? What if the aliens were smarter than they thought and saw through their plan? These thoughts gnawed at Lieutenant Voss, but he kept them to himself. There was no turning back now. The plan had already been set in motion. Meanwhile, the Lurian commanders were growing increasingly frustrated. They couldn't understand how they kept losing the Endeavor. They had the best warships in the galaxy, state-of-the-art tracking systems, and an army of advanced sensors that could detect even the faintest energy signatures. Yet, time and time again, the Endeavor had slipped through their grasp like smoke in the wind. They had analyzed every possible scenario, every mistake the humans might make, but none of their predictions came true. It was as if the Endeavor wasn't just a ship. It was a moving enigma, a riddle that refused to be solved. The Lurian fleet began to tighten its grip. They sent out more ships, more specialized units, and even began to use experimental technologies in an attempt to outsmart the humans. But every time they thought they had gained ground, the Endeavor would vanish again, reappearing in a new corner of the galaxy, just out of reach. The chase was starting to take its toll on the Lorian Empire. Officers grew anxious. The fleet's morale began to falter, and rumors started to spread that perhaps, just perhaps, the humans weren't so insignificant after all. Little did they know, they were walking right into the hands of Captain Briggs. She had known all along that this was the only way to win. She had studied the Lorian fleet, learned their strengths and weaknesses, and now she was using their own overconfidence against them. The chase wasn't just about running, it was about making the Lorian Empire believe they were in control, when, in fact, they were playing right into the trap that had been set years ago. The Endeavor's crew had become masters of deception, using every tool at their disposal to mislead, confuse, and outwit their alien pursuers. And as the Lorian fleet closed in on their supposed victory, they failed to notice the subtle signs, small, hidden anomalies in their path, the unexpected changes in course, the quiet hum of a ship preparing for the most daring maneuver in human history. The final chapter of this chase was about to unfold, and the Lorian Empire would never see it coming. This expanded version maintains suspense while introducing the idea of human ingenuity and strategy, with a looming sense that the humans have something much bigger planned than just evading capture. Behind the closed doors of the Endeavor, away from the eyes of the Lorian Empire, the ship's crew wasn't just made up of skilled pilots and experienced soldiers. They were scientists, strategists, engineers, and brilliant minds who had been quietly working for years to gather intelligence on the Lorian Empire. While Captain Alina Briggs appeared to be solely focused on leading her crew in their relentless evasion of the Lorian fleet, she had been quietly plotting a far more elaborate and dangerous plan. From the very first chase, she had known that the Lorian Empire's obsession with the Endeavor would eventually lead them into a trap. It wasn't just about survival, it was about turning the tables. The Lorian Empire's overconfidence and brute force would be their downfall if they were led into the right scenario. Captain Briggs had carefully chosen her crew for more than just their piloting skills. Each member of the Endeavor's crew brought a specific talent that was essential to the larger strategy unfolding behind the scenes. While the fleet had always seen the ship as a simple target, the crew had become experts in deception, misdirection, and covert warfare. Over the years, the Endeavor had become a shadow of the Lorian fleet's greatest obsession. Each time they thought they were cornering the humans, they were falling deeper into a meticulously constructed maze of misinformation. The Endeavor had left behind false trails, distress signals that led nowhere, wreckage that was carefully staged, and broken transmissions that sent the Lorian ships chasing after empty leads. It was all part of a grand game. The Lorian Empire was being slowly lured into human-controlled space, further away from their own territory and deeper into an area where the humans had the advantage. They were being led into a trap they couldn't yet see, a trap that the crew of the Endeavor had carefully set and refined over the years. But, as always, there were those who weren't convinced. Lieutenant Voss, a veteran officer who had served on numerous military campaigns, had grown uneasy. He had joined the crew of the Endeavor with a sense of duty, but the more he saw of Captain Briggs' plan unfold, the more it began to unsettle him. He respected Briggs and her uncanny ability to escape the Lorian fleet's grasp, but this was different. This wasn't just about outsmarting the aliens. This was about leading them straight into the heart of human territory, into the very jaws of a trap that could mean the end of everything they had worked for. What if the plan failed? What if the Lorian Empire had something more powerful than the humans had anticipated? The Endeavor was a small ship with no significant firepower. The Lorian fleet had endless resources and weapons far beyond anything the humans had. The deeper they led the enemy into their territory, the more dangerous it became. Voss wasn't the only one with doubts. Some of the crew members had begun to whisper among themselves. There were rumors of failure. What if the Endeavor was destroyed before they could complete their plan? What if the Lorian Empire figured it out too soon? What if they didn't fall for the traps? It was one thing to outmaneuver a fleet that was already following them. It was another to lead that same fleet into an area where the humans would be forced to make a final stand. The fear was real, and it was beginning to infect the ranks. Yet, in every briefing, Captain Briggs remained steadfast, her resolve unshaken. She had faith in the plan, faith in the crew, and faith in humanity's ability to adapt and overcome impossible odds. But as Lieutenant Voss spent more time in the quiet corners of the ship, looking at the data and analyzing the movements of the Lurian fleet, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Something felt off about the entire situation. Despite his reservations, Lieutenant Voss knew better than to openly challenge Captain Briggs. She had earned her position through years of remarkable leadership, and the crew trusted her judgment. She had led them to victory before, and her ability to think on her feet had allowed them to survive countless close calls. But this was different. This wasn't just about survival. It was about leading the Lurian Empire into the heart of a trap. Voss had been with the military long enough to know that traps could backfire. Even the most well-laid plans could go wrong, especially when dealing with an enemy as powerful and unpredictable as the Lurian Empire. Yet, as much as he doubted, he knew that there was no turning back. The trap had already been set. The Lurian fleet was already being pulled deeper into human-controlled space. There was no way to back out now without risking everything they had worked for. The deeper they went, the more Voss began to feel the weight of their situation. As the Endeavor slipped through the Lurian fleet's fingers again, the signs of the plan becoming more dangerous were evident. The false signals they had left behind were beginning to catch the attention of high-ranking Lurian officers. They were starting to suspect that this wasn't just a game of cat and mouse. There were whispers among the Lurian officers that the humans were setting them up for something far more dangerous. The Lurian Empire's pride would not allow them to back down, not after all this time, not after all the effort they had invested. And that was exactly what Captain Briggs had counted on. She knew that pride would drive the aliens to make reckless decisions. She knew that their obsession with capturing the Endeavor would blind them to the true danger. But it was a dangerous game. The humans were gambling everything, hoping that the Lurian Empire's overconfidence would be their downfall. As the Endeavor entered deeper, more treacherous parts of space, the tension on board the ship began to rise. Crew members exchanged anxious glances, unsure of what to expect next. The sounds of the ship's hum, once comforting and familiar, now felt like a constant reminder of the uncertainty that lay ahead. Lieutenant Voss couldn't escape the feeling that, for all their planning, they were heading into unknown territory that could either mean the end of the Lurian threat or the complete destruction of the humans aboard the Endeavor. But Captain Briggs remained calm. The final phase of the plan was about to unfold. She knew that this was humanity's chance to prove that they weren't just survivors in the galaxy. They were players, capable of changing the fate of entire empires. However, in the back of her mind, even she couldn't ignore the nagging doubt that maybe, just maybe this time, the odds might not fall in their favor. But there was no turning back now. The trap was set. All they had to do was wait for the Lurian fleet to take the final step into the web. The tension within the Lurian Empire was reaching a boiling point. For years, they had chased the Endeavor, a seemingly insignificant human ship that had become the focus of their obsession. What had begun as a pursuit to capture a mere freighter had transformed into something much more dangerous for the Lurian fleet. The humans' constant elusiveness had worn down the once unstoppable Empire's sense of invincibility. The fleet, which had once been a model of efficiency, discipline, and unmatched power, was now showing signs of fractures. There were whispers of doubt among the commanders, growing frustration among the soldiers, and an air of paranoia that clouded their every move. They had expected the Endeavor to be a fleeting nuisance, a small thorn in their side that would be easily crushed. But after years of failed attempts and humiliating defeats, the Endeavor had become more than just an escape. It had become a symbol of human resilience, a testament to their resourcefulness, and something the Lurian Empire could no longer ignore. Every failed attempt to corner the Endeavor only fueled their desperation. It wasn't just the Endeavor that was at stake anymore. It was the very pride of the Lurian Empire. How could they, the dominant force in the galaxy, be bested by a tiny human ship? This obsession had begun to erode the unity of the Lurian fleet. Some officers demanded that they abandon the chase altogether, believing it was a fool's errand. But the Empire's leaders couldn't afford to admit defeat. not after so much time, resources, and manpower had been devoted to capturing the humans. The Endeavor had become a symbol of failure, and the Empire couldn't stand the thought of letting it slip away. Meanwhile, the fleet's morale plummeted. They were running low on supplies and patience, and the constant pursuit of the human ship had stretched their forces thin. The leadership in the high command was divided, and the mounting pressure was evident in every strategy session. Arguments broke out over the best course of action. Some commanders pushed for a full-scale invasion, an all-out assault on the human colonies, while others, more cautious, argued for a more subtle approach, suggesting continued pursuit until the Endeavor inevitably made a mistake. But no agreement could be reached. The pressure was too great. The failure to capture the Endeavor had left the Empire vulnerable, and in a desperate attempt to break the stalemate, a decision was finally made that would change everything. The High Command chose to send their most advanced warship, the Dreadnought, to end the chase once and for all. The Dreadnought was a colossal vessel equipped with devastating weaponry and a formidable defense system. It was the crown jewel of the Lurian fleet, and its presence alone struck fear into the hearts of anyone who stood in its way. With this warship at the helm, the Lurian fleet was certain they would crush the Endeavor and restore their damaged reputation. The Dreadnought was a symbol of the Empire's might, and it was now poised to destroy the last obstacle in their path. The final known location of the Endeavor had been pinpointed a remote star system tucked away in the far reaches of space. The Endeavor had taken every precaution, but the Lurian Empire believed it was their moment of triumph. The Endeavor had nowhere left to run. They had tracked it to the edge of the galaxy, and with the Dreadnought on its way, the Lurian Empire was certain that victory was inevitable. But as the fleet closed in on the human ship, there was a strange quiet that settled over the command bridge of the Dreadnought. The commanders aboard the Dreadnought were on edge. The Endeavor had evaded capture so many times that it felt almost too easy this time. Was it possible the humans had made a mistake? Were they truly cornered, or was this yet another clever ruse? Captain Ulrich, the officer in command of the Dreadnought, watched the shifting readings on the screens before him, his mind weighing the possibilities. A nagging sense of doubt gnawed at him, but he quickly suppressed it. He had one goal in mind: destroy the Endeavor and bring the human pursuit to an end. Yet, even as the Dreadnought cruised toward the last known location of the Endeavor, something about the situation didn't feel right. There were subtle anomalies in the data, small discrepancies that didn't quite add up. Was it really the Endeavor they were tracking, or was this part of some new human deception? No one aboard the Dreadnought had any real idea of what awaited them. The Endeavor had been known to leave false signals in its wake, and Captain Ulrich couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking straight into a trap. But there was no turning back now. The Dreadnought's course was set, and the fleet followed, ready for the end. They were about to confront a ship they believed to be vulnerable, and for the first time in years, the Lurian Empire felt that they were on the verge of true victory. But in the depths of space, far from prying eyes, the Endeavor's crew was preparing their own final play. The Dreadnought was about to make its move, but so was the human ship. The Lurian Empire, blind in its obsession and overconfidence, had walked straight into the heart of a plan they couldn't possibly understand. The Dreadnought closed in on its target. The Lurian Empire believed they were closing in on their prize, but in reality, they were about to become the prey. The game had shifted, and the tables were about to turn once more. As the Endeavor waited for its moment to strike, the Lurian fleet's desperation would soon give way to realization the trap had already sprung, and they were the ones caught in it. Captain Alina Briggs stood silently at the helm of the Endeavor, her eyes fixed on the looming asteroid field ahead. The moment she'd been preparing for years, had finally arrived. The final piece of their long-constructed plan was about to fall into place. For over a decade, they had outwitted and outmaneuvered the Lurian fleet, each escape leading them deeper into their trap. Now, it was time to strike back, to turn the tables, once and for all. The Endeavor, as it had always been, was a small, seemingly insignificant ship, no match for the mighty Lurian fleet on its own. But that was the beauty of the plan. The Endeavor had played its part, acting as bait, leading the Lurian Empire into the very heart of a human stronghold they had no idea existed. The asteroid field ahead was not just a natural formation, it was a well-hidden human base, a carefully crafted facility that could cloak itself from the prying eyes of all but the most advanced sensors. It was humanity's secret weapon, and the Lorian Empire had no idea what was about to happen. The Lorian fleet moved closer to what they thought was their victory. Captain Briggs gave a subtle nod to her crew. The Endeavour emitted a final, calculated distress signal. It was the perfect ruse. The human ship appeared to be stranded, helpless, offering the Lorian fleet one last, irresistible chance to claim victory. But what the Lorian ships didn't realize was that the Endeavour was already vanishing from their scanners. The ship wasn't destroyed, it was simply cloaked, hidden within the network of asteroids and advanced stealth technology that humanity had carefully engineered. The Endeavour was gone, but the trap was set. The Lorian fleet slowed, their scanners flickering and searching for the human ship. Something was wrong. The familiar signal of the Endeavour had disappeared. The fleet commanders exchanged uneasy glances, their instincts telling them something wasn't right. But they were too far gone in their obsession. They could already taste victory. In their desperation, they ignored the growing feeling of unease and focused on what they thought was a simple solution. The Endeavour had made a mistake, and they were about to claim their prize. Just as the Lorian ships began to close in on the last known coordinates of the Endeavour, a new signal emerged from deep within the asteroid field. It was a distress call, an unmistakable cry for help. The voice was frantic, the message urgent. It was perfect, too perfect. The Lorian commanders, blinded by their need to capture the Endeavour, couldn't resist. They ordered the fleet to follow the signal, convinced that the humans had made one final blunder. They were about to walk right into the heart of the trap. The signal led the Lorian fleet deeper into the asteroid field, where the space around them began to grow darker, more treacherous. Suddenly, a series of hidden human ships sprang to life from the shadows of the asteroids. They had been lying in wait, cloaked and silent, until now. As soon as they revealed themselves, the humans launched a surprise attack with devastating force. The Lorian fleet was caught completely off guard. The human ships, small but packed with advanced weaponry, ripped into the Lorian vessels with precision and fury. Laser fire lit up the space around them, and explosions rocked the fleet. The Lorian ships, still in the midst of their pursuit, were caught between the asteroid field and the onslaught of enemy fire. Chaos erupted. The humans had turned the tables. It wasn't just the smaller human ships that the Lorian fleet had to worry about. From the shadows, the Endeavour reappeared. But this wasn't the ship the Lorian Empire had been chasing. This was a different Endeavour, one that had been altered, upgraded, and armed with technology far beyond anything the Lorian fleet had encountered. The ship's once innocuous appearance had been replaced with sleek, powerful designs, and its weapons systems now packed the punch of a true warship. It wasn't just a freighter anymore, it was humanity's hidden flagship, and it was ready for battle. The Endeavour's new weapon systems came to life with deadly precision. The Lorian fleet's biggest warships, including the heavily armored dreadnought, were caught in the crossfire. Lasers sliced through their shields, and missiles impacted their hulls with devastating force. The Lorian commanders, still struggling to understand the situation, scrambled to coordinate a defense. But it was too late. The humans had taken control of the battlefield, using their advanced stealth tactics and surprise maneuvers to outflank the Lorian forces. Their ships, once seen as insignificant, had become a fearsome threat, launching wave after wave of attacks that crippled the Lorian fleet's command structure. The Lorian Empire, which had once seemed invincible, now found itself fighting a war on two fronts. Their pride had led them into a trap they couldn't escape, and their desperation to capture the Endeavour had blinded them to the true strength of humanity. The humans, who had been underestimated for so long, were showing the galaxy exactly what they were capable of. They weren't just survivors, they were fighters, resourceful and relentless, willing to sacrifice everything to protect their home. Amidst the chaos, Captain Briggs stood resolute, watching as the Endeavour unleashed its full potential. The Lorian fleet was in disarray, unable to respond to the rapid and unpredictable attacks. Each strike from the Endeavour seemed to hit with surgical precision, targeting weak points in the Lorian ships and exploiting their vulnerabilities. The dreadnought, once thought to be an unstoppable force, now found itself under attack from all sides, its formidable shields weakening with each barrage. As the battle raged on, the humans knew they had only one chance to finish what they had started. The Endeavor wasn't just fighting to survive, it was fighting to win. Every member of the crew had given everything to make this moment a reality, and now they would make sure that the Lorian Empire understood the true meaning of human ingenuity and determination. The Endeavor's final strike was swift and decisive. With one last coordinated attack, the human ships tore through the heart of the Lorian fleet. The Dreadnought, once the symbol of Lorian might, was crippled, its weapons systems failing as the human ships continued to press their advantage. The Lorian commanders, stunned by the ferocity of the attack, realized too late that they had underestimated their enemies. The trap had worked. The humans had taken their revenge, and now the Lorian Empire would never be the same again. The battle had been fierce, but the Endeavor's trap had worked. The Lorian Empire, once confident in their superiority, was now in a state of chaos and confusion. The mighty Dreadnought, the symbol of Lorian strength, lay crippled and broken among the wreckage of the Lorian fleet. Its massive form, once the most fearsome warship in the galaxy, was now nothing more than a hulking carcass floating among the debris. The rest of the Lorian ships, too, had suffered devastating blows. Some had been destroyed outright, while others were crippled and drifting helplessly in space, their systems failing one by one. The once proud fleet had been reduced to a mere shadow of its former self, a testament to the human ingenuity and cunning that had orchestrated its downfall. Captain Alina Briggs stood at the helm of the Endeavor, her face etched with determination. Her crew, though battle-weary, stood tall. The final move was at hand, and it was time to deliver the message that would shake the Lorian Empire to its very core. The victory was not just in the destruction of their fleet, but in the message they were about to send. The humans had repelled the greatest military threat they had ever faced, and now they were going to make sure the galaxy knew it. In the silence of space, the Endeavor's communication system came to life, sending a powerful transmission directly to the Lorian High Command. The message, clear and direct, was a testament to the resilience of humanity. To the Lorian High Command, the voice of Captain Briggs echoed across the stars. "This is Captain Alina Briggs of the Endeavor. Your pursuit of humanity ends here. You have chased us for years, believing we were weak, believing we could be conquered. You were wrong. We are not a race to be ignored or underestimated. We are humans, and we will not be your prey. The battle is over. You have lost. Cease your aggression toward humanity, or face the consequences." The message was unyielding, filled with the raw, unfiltered pride of humanity, a species that had faced countless odds, survived unimaginable trials, and had now, once and for all, proven their place in the galaxy. As the message reverberated across the void, the Lorian fleet began to retreat. Their morale had shattered completely, their ships battered and broken, unable to continue the fight. They had been outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and overpowered by a species they had once believed was insignificant. The Lorian commanders, once so certain of their victory, now had no choice but to pull back. Their pride had been dealt a blow so devastating that it would take decades, if not centuries, for the Empire to recover. But the damage was not just to their fleet, it was to their very reputation. The Lorian Empire had been forced to retreat, humiliated by a human ship that had once seemed like an easy target. On the Endeavor, the crew stood in silent triumph. Their plan had come to fruition. The Lorian Empire had been bested, not just by their military might, but by their inability to truly understand humanity. The Lorian Empire had seen humans as a weak, primitive species, easily swept aside in their quest for dominance. They had underestimated the strength of human resolve, the resourcefulness that had propelled humanity to the stars, and the unyielding desire to survive. In this final moment, humanity had shown the galaxy what it was truly capable of. The Endeavor wasn't just a freighter anymore. It was a symbol of human resilience, of a species that had survived against all odds. As the remnants of the Lorian fleet limped away, their defeat clear for all to see, the crew of the Endeavor allowed themselves a moment of quiet celebration. They had done it. They had not only survived, they had won. and the message they had sent to the Lurian Empire would resonate throughout the galaxy for years to come. Humanity had faced its greatest threat and had emerged victorious. They had proven that no matter the odds, no matter the enemy, they would always fight for their survival. The consequences of this victory would extend far beyond the battlefield. The Lurian Empire, once the dominant force in the galaxy, would now have to contend with a new power in the universe. Humanity had made its mark, and no one could ignore them any longer. The age of human dominance was on the horizon. For Captain Briggs and the crew of the Endeavor, the victory was bittersweet. They had fought for their survival, and in doing so, they had secured a future for humanity. But the fight was far from over. The Lurian Empire would regroup, rebuild, and eventually seek revenge. But the humans had shown they were ready for whatever came next. They had proven that they would not back down, that they would not be intimidated, and that they would rise above any challenge. As the Endeavor drifted away from the wreckage of the Lurian fleet, Captain Briggs gazed out at the stars, her mind already working on what lay ahead. This was not the end, it was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and humanity had only just begun to make its presence felt. They had proven they could survive. Now, they would prove they could thrive. The age of human domination had begun, and there was no turning back.